Hi, my name's Phil. I'm talking about politics. In this video, I'll be going to be picking up on the ramifications again of the internal market bill, the one that the government have admitted would be a breach of international law, passing through to its second reading in the House of Commons, and considering whether Boris Johnson has trapped himself in another impossible situation. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So in this video, there are some things that are certain and some which are speculation. So if we go over what's certain first, the first thing is in terms of what Boris Johnson is saying that the offending clauses in this bill are for, it doesn't actually address at all. That was exposed earlier on in the House of Commons. The second is that Boris Johnson says he wants the law-breaking clauses to his own MPs in order to show that we're serious about tearing up the withdrawal agreement if the EU don't give us the deal that we want on our terms. Third, leaders of the EU Parliament, representing a majority of the European Parliament, have said that they would block any EU-UK deal if this bill is in place. In fact, they've also said they'd block it even if there were a threat to break the treaty. So even defeating this bill might not placate them if it's still the government's policy to eventually do this. In addition, Ireland, who would have a veto on the deal anyway as a member state, also find the bill wholly unacceptable, as you might imagine. As such, there is no EU Brexit deal possible with this bill in place or even threatened. That's not speculation, that's a fact. And fourth, if we do not comply with the Northern Ireland Protocol, regardless of whether this bill goes through or not, if we do not comply with that protocol, then checks will have to take place between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. That means a breach of the Good Friday Agreement. The UK government will be to blame. They'll blame the EU. But everyone else, including the United States, has made it clear that it will be the UK's fault. Because the thing is, sure, ordinary members of the public may be ignorant of these matters. But, you know, the border between two different customs areas, you need a customs border. That's how it is. We could have chosen to either remain in the EU's customs union or form a different customs union that would still do enough to keep those arrangements the same, and therefore this wouldn't be an issue. The UK has chosen not to do this. This means the UK has chosen to create a hard border between the UK and the EU somewhere. Now, that is understood by all governments, if not members of the public. In addition, by refusing to set up that hard border in the Irish Sea, which was mentioned in the treaty that we signed, then inevitably it shifts between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And again, this is the UK's government fault. Now, the US was very much involved in the Good Friday Agreement. This isn't just about the fact that the Irish lobby in America is very powerful and various politicians are under pressure to make sure that they show faith with the Good Friday Agreement, which would be enough. America itself was very much involved. It was the friend to both sides that was the driving force that got it over the line. They are also a guarantor of the agreement. They are heavily invested in its success. So breaching the Good Friday Agreement isn't just sticking two fingers up at the EU, but America as well. Now, don't get me wrong. I am quite satisfied these days that Boris Johnson is quite insane. However, is he actually unhinged enough to be deliberately pissing off the two most powerful political and economic entities in the world? So now we have to carry out a little bit of speculation. So everything I've said so far is beyond dispute. That's just a fact. You can try and dispute it if you like, could do with a laugh. So the question becomes, what is Boris Johnson actually doing this for? He knows that if it gets through the Commons, it will be blocked by the Lords. It won't become law, at least not yet. Though he could, in theory, force it through the Lords next year, and of course he'd inevitably say he wanted to do that. It would demonstrate his madman credentials to the lunatics on the far right of his party, because he will have tried to do it. That'll, of course, not necessarily make it impossible to get a free trade agreement with the EU. But again, like I said, if even the threat of this bill, even if it is blocked by the Lords, is enough to scupper it, then it could do. But in addition, having it blocked by the unelected Lords allows him to point at enemy of the people again. You know, he's already used this against judges, the House of Commons, 55% of the British population. Why not the Lords as well? In addition, it means that a lot of people are talking about this, which means less time being spent talking about, say, COVID and unemployment mess that this government is also creating. As such, it's also a useful distraction in some ways. Now, it is possible the distraction element is part of the process. I'm not ruling it out, but I'm not really that sure. Because domestically, absolutely, it could be seen as a distraction. But internationally, just doing what we've done now, even if it ends up being defeated in the Commons at the next reading, just attempting to get this bill passed has already damaged our reputation. That damage is now there, done, in the bank, no matter whether it continues or not. Now, if Boris Johnson's MPs had blocked it, as they should have done, immediately, then the blame for this travesty would have been laid squarely at the feet of the Prime Minister. It would still impact on the country while he was Prime Minister, but the party would be able to wash its hands of the whole affair, and maybe the country too, as soon as they got rid of him. By supporting it through to a second reading at least, the party has said that it is okay with the principle of breaking international law. So even if they ultimately vote against it, what they'll be saying is, but the conditions under which we're happy to break international law aren't really being met at the moment. But there are conditions under which we will accept breaking international law. Oh, I mean, that damage is done. You know, the damage can be mitigated by blocking it before it goes to the Lords, but you won't heal the damage that's already taken place. Experienced diplomats in a number of friendly countries, including our own, have already spoken about the permanent damage done, no matter what happens now. So Boris Johnson has now doomed himself to trying to negotiate international trade agreements. I can't help but recall a comment I had in a video today. Someone, again, hyping up the Japanese trade deal as if it's a great thing. And saying, oh, it's the first of many. I think it may be the first and the last for a little while. Obviously, we need trade agreements. We will have to get some. Very difficult on the current trajectory to get any more. So, yeah, we're going to have to try and negotiate them where his intended partners will view the government, quite rightly, with deep suspicion. They will not take Boris Johnson or his government at his word. And so the process of negotiation will take much longer. You know, needing to become much more technical to avoid any doubts. Because what they will say, very understandably, is, I see you didn't understand the treaty you negotiated and signed with the EU recently. That's what you're saying. You didn't understand the implications. Right. So what we need to do with our negotiations is to go over in very fine detail exactly what each line means in of itself and in conjunction with all the other lines. You know, so that you understand every syllable. I'm sure Johnson will love that. He loves details. Then let's move forward a little to the end of this month and into October. So this bill isn't strictly needed to renege on the withdrawal agreement because Boris Johnson and Michael Gove are required, according to the terms of the treaty, to implement physical infrastructure to comply with, amongst other things, the Northern Ireland Protocol. They have been dragging their feet on that just fine without any votes in Parliament. Now, let's say the bill is defeated in the Lords, let's say. And Johnson then gets to say to his hardliners that his hands are tied for now, but don't worry, he'll just force it through in the next session of Parliament, next year or something like that. Now, you might think that the hardliners would at least insist that he doesn't comply with the Northern Ireland Protocol. After all, he's already said he's willing to break the law. But, you know, without this bill in its current form, it would also mean breaking British law, and he'd be found guilty by a British court. So he'll have a ready-made excuse for not doing that. But then what about the EU? So the bill was supposed to be a way to get the EU to deal. Okay, so it's been defeated. But does that mean the EU will be happy to carry on with talks about the deal? Surely not. Because if the bill was only defeated by the Lords and Johnson can force it through later, well, why would they give Johnson the deal he will use to claim victory back home when his stated intention is to breach the treaty that they already have with him? How on earth are they going to possibly sell that back home in EU countries? And obviously what's needed here is for someone to ask this question of someone in the EU with the power to influence the deal, very specifically. If the bill is defeated, but it's defeated in the Lords, allowing Johnson to still push ahead with it next year, Will the EU agree a second treaty with the UK when it is still official British policy to renege on the first? I really can't see how the answer could be yes, but it would be interesting to hear it. Unless the question has already been asked and I just haven't seen it yet. So with this sequence of events, Boris Johnson really looks to have trapped himself in a no-deal scenario with the EU. You know, because to get a deal now, he would have to climb down significantly. I mean, maybe it's what he wanted all the time. Some will argue it's what he wanted all the time. It may have been. But it's also trapped his MPs. Because what are they going to say? Especially those in the poorer constituencies around where I live, who previously voted Labour, would never have dreamed of voting Conservative. So what are they going to say when the food and medicine shortages hit, when unemployment soars again, when they start cutting public services again, when those people are told that the reason for all this is it's Boris Johnson's refusal to back his own withdrawal agreement that he won their votes on that caused it all. You know, breaking a campaign promise caused it all, and that their MP voted to break that campaign promise. Also bear in mind that the EU are not as spiteful as the Brexit brigade in this country. You know, there are plans to mitigate some of the damage of a no-deal Brexit, as long as it doesn't break international law, because, you know, that's important to them, or compromise their own markets. These measures would help out British businesses who are not being helped out by our own government. You know, they were willing to allow some passporting for a certain amount of time, for example, for service sector. Now, if Johnson continues this offensively anti-European journey and rhetoric, and his own MPs side with him, then you would think the political pressure in the EU would be to make them disinclined to help out at all. Give Britain the hardest Brexit that it seems to be asking for. You know, look after yourselves, but don't help Britain out. Why would you do that? Making the chaos of a no deal even worse than previously predicted. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.